All right. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to give another few seconds to let some more people funnel in, and then we will get started. Welcome. My name is Carmen, and I am the training coordinator at the Temple Small Business Development Center. The Temple SBDC helps small businesses start and grow. We provide free one-on-one counseling and a variety of low to no cost webinars. We are proud to be a part of the nationally accredited network of SBDCs with over 1,000 centers across the United States. You have joined us today for pivoting to procurement certifications. A copy of today's PowerPoint and a link to the recording of this session will be sent out to all attendees. And while all attendees have been muted, we encourage you to post any questions in the chat or Q&A. And now I will turn the floor over to Colleen.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to thank Temple for having me. I am Colleen Lacoste. I'm the certification manager at WeBank East, and I will be one of your two presenters today. My other presenter with me is Jen Tilden, who is from the SBA. And I'd like to kick us off today by, it's okay, we all got cats here. I'd like to kick us off today by talking about supplier diversity and what is supplier diversity and why do you need a certificate to get involved in this? So supplier diversity in a nutshell is where corporations and government agencies take a look at the small businesses that they hire as vendors, suppliers for products, make sure that they come from a diverse background. So whether they're hiring enough women-owned, minority-owned, disability-owned, LGBT-owned, and veteran-owned businesses. Now, it's important to know that every organization, every corporation, every government agency is a little bit different when it comes to their supplier diversity programs and goals. So one corporation may have a very developed supplier diversity program. They have a whole supplier diversity manager that works with procurement, that keeps a list of all of their certified businesses and advocates for contracts to be shared with them and their either specific set-aside programs or their goals. Other organizations and corporations may say that they have specific goals, and some talk the talk more than they walk the walk. A lot of times, some corporations will have mandates for a certificate. So they want you to be certified in order to take part in their supplier diversity program, in order for you to have access to the contract opportunities. And while it doesn't guarantee you business, it gives you that foot in the door to have access to supplier diversity programs and to the contract opportunities that you may not otherwise be able to find out about as a small new business. So a lot of times a corporation or government agency will ask, are you a certified diverse business? And you can say yes if you have your WBE, women-owned certificate, your MBE, minority-owned, disability-owned, veteran-owned, or LGBT-owned. There are a few different national certificates out there. Every corporation, government agency looks for different ones. And while there are national certifiers out there, it's also important to know that sometimes there are other smaller certificate programs, like, for example, the city of Philadelphia, the Enterprise Center has their own little WBE program for women-owned businesses that's generally accepted by corporations and some agencies within Philly. But if you go out to like Texas, a corporation out there is going to be like, what is this certificate? Who is this certifying agency? So it is always important to do your research into your target clients before pursuing a certificate program. Find out, what does your potential clients' supplier diversity programs look like? Do they want you to have a certificate? Which certificate do they want you to have? So I'm going to be talking about the WeBank certificate today, which is the national certifier for women-owned. And Jen is going to be talking about the WOSB program for federal government. So are those one of those two certificates? Will that apply? Talk to that supplier diversity person. If they say yes, great, you're in the right place. If they want you to have a specific program, so for example, PennDOT and a few of the other PA transportation agencies have their own specific program, PA UCP program, where they want you to get certified with them specifically to do business with these transportation agencies. They do not accept any outside certificates, and that certificate they will issue you is not good for anyone besides these PA transportation agencies. So if you want to do business with SEPTA or PennDOT or any of those, you want to get that one, but then don't go around and hand it over to Bank of America and they're going to be like, what is this? This is for doing business with PennDOT. So do your research ahead of time, find out, look at 5 to 10 potential clients, because you can go crazy looking at every client in the world. Find out 5 to 10 potential clients, what certificates do they want for you to get access to their supplier diversity programs? And just keep in mind, it does not guarantee you business. It is a networking tool. It helps you get a foot in the door, and it may be the cherry on top to get you some contracts, but it's all about working your network. It's like getting a college degree. Because you get a college degree doesn't mean that jobs are going to fall in your lap. You still have to apply, you have to work your network, you have to be the superior candidate. So this is all about networking. So I am going to jump us into the WBE portion of our program before I pass it over to Jen a little later in the hour to talk about the WOSB portion of the program. Are there any questions, any comments from our Temple folks before I jump in?
We're looking pretty good in the chat right now.
Okay, great. So I'm going to share my screen then. And I'll share my slideshow. All right. Hopefully you all can see my screen right now. So I will be talking about how to get WBE certified, which is one of the many ways that you can get a diverse certificate. So some things I'm going to talk about in my portion. I already filled you in on what is supplier diversity. I'm going to talk a bit about our network. What is a WBE? What does it mean to be a WBE? What are the eligibility requirements? And what are the benefits of getting this certificate? And then I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of the application process. So how do you get started? What do you have to submit to us? So I first want you to take a short self-assessment. Is certification right for you? So hopefully after you've heard me talk a little bit about supplier diversity, you have an idea in your mind of, okay, I'm in the right place here. But let's ask yourself, is your product or service targeted at corporations, government agencies? If you're product-based, are you looking to do wholesale? So are you looking to get into supermarkets or any of the big box stores like Target or Walmart, or sell your product to, let's say, hospitals or school systems? Certificates like this are most beneficial to companies that are interested in doing business with other companies rather than the general public. Also ask yourself, is your business at the right point yet? Do you have the capacity to provide quality service or your product to potential government or corporate clients? You don't want to be at the very beginning of your journey in entrepreneurship, and if you are looking to manufacture a product and you are networking with a potential client and they say, oh, actually, we would love to order this product. You don't want to be in that position where you have to say to them, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm not ready for that yet. So make sure you're at the right place, your business is set up, you are up and running. You also have to be willing to share all of the details of your business with us. I'll go over all the documents that we need a little bit later, but you do need to be able and willing to share that with us. And also, are you clear that it's a networking tool, it's a marketing tool. It does not guarantee you business. It does not entitle you to contracts, but it helps to open up the doors to these supplier diversity programs. So kind of going along those lines here, the benefits you get, first and foremost, you get that certificate. So if a potential client comes to you and says, we're specifically looking for a diverse owned and certified business, you have that certificate. You get access to the supplier diversity professionals and executives that work with us. You get access to our whole database. You're included in our database of WBEs and our corporate members. You get access to a lot of marketing tools. So our women-owned logos, which you may see around. I see them a lot in grocery stores, honestly. You get access to a lot of our networking events, both at a local and a national level. So it's a really great network to be a part of. So we are actually a national organization comprised of 14 different regions. Now, I am part of WeBank East. WeBank stands for the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, comprises all 14 territories. WeBank East is Pennsylvania, Delaware, and the southern half of New Jersey. Now, when you get certified, it's just a matter of where your headquarters is located. If you work out of your home, your headquarters is your home. So if you are in PA, Delaware, or South Jersey, you'd be working with me and my team. If you are in any of the other states, you would be working with one of those other teams. But all the process requirements, documents, eligibility are all the same. And no matter which territory you get your certificate through, you can use it in any of the states. You can be active and network in any of the territories. It's a great network to be a part of. And I encourage you, like if you have another officer or staff member out in Seattle, like please have them be a part of WeBank Pacific and network with them, because don't just limit yourself to our region. So there are over 16,000 certified WBEs nationally, and we also have over 325 corporate members. Now, those specifically are corporations that pay dues to us to have access to you guys. So while there are hundreds of corporations more that accept the WeBank certificate, these guys are a good place to start if you're like, I really don't know which corporations I want to target, because these 325 pay dues to us, so they better accept our certificate and have good supplier diversity programs. Now, in our area, we have just under 1,700 WBEs, and about 50 of those corporates are active locally. So that's why I always say, get engaged in all of the territories that you do business, because you never know what other corporates that you, could be your potential clients. And also don't forget about the other WBEs, because they are many, and some are very large and are looking for like subcontractors. So don't forget about them. Now, what is a WBE? Stands for Women's Business Enterprise. So you may hear this term, you also may hear MWBE, Minority Women Business Enterprise, it's often combined. That is what that stands for. Now, getting that certificate, as we talked about, opens up the supplier diversity channels. Another thing to keep in mind is your whole business gets certified. It's not just you as the individual owner. So this means any of your employees are welcome to participate. Now let's break down the eligibility a little bit more. First and foremost, you have to be a for-profit business. You don't certify nonprofits. You have to be 51% owned, operated, controlled by a woman. So if you're an LLC, your operating agreement should spell out the percentages as well as your tax returns. If you are a corporation, 51% of all aggregate stocks, not just voting stocks. So if you have investors, it's all stocks, have to be held by a woman or women. The female owners have to be US citizens or legal permanent residents. A woman has to hold the highest defined office. Doesn't have to be the same female owner. So let's say it's a mother-daughter. The mother owns 80% of the company and the daughter owns 20% and is also the CEO because her mother's retired. That is okay, as long as a woman is actively running the show. So if you are a husband-wife team, the woman has to be the one in charge. She has to be the CEO or the president, whatever the bylaws or your operating agreement state is the highest office. She has to have ultimate authority over her husband and be actively using that authority. She's not just a figurehead. The female owner has to have evidence of legal and managerial control. So things like she has to be a signer on the bank account. She has to, be signing the board minutes if there's a board of directors. She has to make sure that her taxes accurately show the correct percentage. Same with contribution of capital or expertise. She has to be the reason the business is there. Again, if it's a husband-wife team, we see a lot of these. Let's say that, the husband has been in construction for 20 years. He really has the background. And she has been working with her husband as the CFO for the last 10 years. She knows a ton about the construction industry. And she's really the one at this point that's kind of calling the shots strategically and financially, even though her husband is out in the field working as a foreman. What we would look for is if he decided he wanted to retire tomorrow, could she keep that business running? And if she comes back to us and says, you know what, yes, I work with the local union. I have 3 other foremen on my team. If my husband retired tomorrow, like, great, good for him. We don't need him. So the woman has to have the expertise to keep the business running and to, make sure that operations can happen without relying on her husband or another male or another business too. So I have seen, for example, a business that just got started, and she was doing it was an equipment rental company, and a family friend had purchased a bunch of the equipment for her, but he owned all of that equipment. So she couldn't actually service any contracts without going to him and borrowing that equipment. That's not functioning independently. She has to be able to function independently without relying on a male's expertise, resources owned by a male. She needs to be able to run her business without a male coming in one day and saying, you're shut down. We can't, you can't use our equipment. You can't use this expertise. You can't use these employees. We see this a lot when businesses are brand new and they're just breaking off from another business. So for example, if it's a family run business and let's say the granddaughter has been in the business her whole life and she's like, you know what, I have a great idea, it's just a specific niche. I'm going to open my own division, my own business, but she's still working out of the family offices, using the family equipment, working with all the other clients. She's not really independent yet, even though legally she's incorporated separately. Not saying she never will be, just at this time, she's not independently operating yet. So ultimately, all of this, we want to ensure that it's not just women owned, it's women run and controlled as well, because we want to avoid situations where a woman is put as a front. And that's why we look at all of these criteria and all of the documents, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Now, otherwise, there is no limitation on size, industry, length of time. I have certified businesses that have been around for 75 years, 100 employees, businesses that have been around for 6 months, and it's a one-woman show working out of her kitchen table. That is totally fine, and every industry under the sun. Now, we also offer the WOSB, which is the certificate that Jen is going to talk about a little later in the program. Now, this is specifically for the federal contracting program. We are a third-party certifier, so I encourage you, if you are interested in both certificates, we can certify you as both. It's another laborious process if you apply directly with the SBA. You can do that, but it's like just a couple extra questions and like one extra document that you need to send us for us to be able to issue that additional certificate for you, and it's no extra cost. So if you are interested in both certificates, we can absolutely add that on. If you are not interested in federal contracting, please check no on question 1, the very, very first question of the WBE application. A lot of people see, oh, women own small business. I'm a small business too, and they check yes, and they have no interest in federal contracting, and then we're asking them these questions about SAM.gov and everything, and they're like, ah. So Jen is going to talk more about that later, but know that if you're interested in federal contracting, we can work with you on the WOSB as well. Now, let me talk a little bit about the application process. So the entire process takes about 3 to 4 months. It can take a little bit less if you are a very simple business. Let's say you're a single member LLC, you've got all your documents in order. It can take as little as 45 days. If you are a very complicated business or your documents are all over the place, it takes a long time for you to get everything to us. I mean, I've seen businesses where it just goes on for months and months because it just takes a long time for you guys to get the documents to us. But ultimately, we try to keep you on track through these 3 phases. So the first phase is our documentation review, our Q&A phase. You're going to send all this stuff to us. Once you get all your docs together, fill out the application and send it to us. Give us like a week or 2 to read through everything because you've sent us a ton of stuff. And then we'll reach out to you with a bunch of questions because what you sent us is kind of a baseline. There's only so much we can get from documents, and we want to learn more about, oh, I see, she sent us the resume for her CFO. Her CFO also works at another company in a similar industry. we're going to ask if there's a relationship. We want to know if there's any independence issues. We see that she accidentally uploaded 2 of the same document here. We're going to ask her to please resend that. So this is a period for us to make sure we have all the documents we need, we have all the questions answered, and then once we're like, okay, we have everything, we have a clear view in our mind of who your business is, we are going to write up our review and then send it to our committee. And our committee are all volunteers who meet generally twice a month, and they are going to review all of the documents in your application, and they're going to do a second review. So there is more than one set of eyes reviewing your application. And then the third phase, we are going to do a site visit. Now, in normal years, we do an in-person site visit. Of course, COVID times, we are doing virtual site visits. So this is a generally about 1 hour one-on-one meeting with you, the female owner, and one of our staff or volunteers. It is just with the female owners, so no male minority owners, no other employees. And we're just going to get to know your business. We're going to ask you questions about how you got started, your clients, your staff, anything about your operations. And it's also a good time for you to ask questions of us too. Once the site visit is done, generally you'll hear back in about a week or so. So these are the 3 phases that your application will go through. There is a cost to apply, and it is an annual fee since recertification is annual. There is a sliding scale. So if you made under $1 million this past year on your tax return, it would be $350. If you made 1 to 5, it's $500, and it goes up from there. Now, this is not a guarantee of certification. This fee is a processing fee. It pays to guarantee you a fair and timely review, because we spend many, many hours reviewing your application. So if you do choose to withdraw or you get denied, it's not refundable. Now, before I get into the documents, I want to take a second to talk about confidentiality and privacy, because it's really important. We use a portal called WeBank Link 2.0. It has several layers of encryption, and this is where everything goes through. We don't accept anything in hard copy. Please don't fax us anything. I know there's somewhere in the system, like from years ago, that still says like, fax to this number. Please don't fax us anything. Don't email me, don't mail me. Upload everything, attach it to your application. That way it is all safe, encrypted in the system, and I can see everything right there. All of our staff and committee members sign confidentiality agreements, and your application will only ever be reviewed by your specific reviewers on a company machine. So even when our volunteers on our committee review, they're viewing your application through my shared screen on Zoom. So they're never going to have access to your documents. If the certification is discontinued for any reason, all of the documents and records are purged. So we don't want to keep stuff if you're not going to finish the application. And if you are certified, confidential information is not shared with corporate members. We're going to share with them in the directory your public information, your business description, website, your name, contact, but we're not going to tell them like specific things about what you put on your tax return and stuff like that. Another important note is that if you have an admin or a CFO or someone that is helping you with the application, please list them as an application contact in question 17. If someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I have questions about our application, I'm going to check with you first, because I don't know if I should be talking to this person or not if they're not listed as an application contact. So I want to show you what the system looks like. When you get into WeBank Link, on the bottom left side, you're going to click apply or renew. I know these screens are really small, but I just want you to kind of see generally where you'll be clicking. You will get these slides after the presentation, so you can save and come back at any time. You have up to 90 days to complete the application. And then you're going to click on process on your current year. You'll get these slides. I know it's tiny. So this is your application landing page. All these little red arrows show the different sections of the application. So they'll turn green, and it says on there like 0 questions of 15 completed. So you'll see exactly how much you have left on the application. This is a very, very important date in this little red box here. As I said, you have 90 days to complete your application. If it is like day 80 and you're like, ooh, I don't know if I can get it in the next week and a half. Email me, please, so I can extend that. If you wait until the night before, I may not see your email. And once it gets deleted, it is gone. There's no way I can get it back. It's a safety feature. I can't get it back. So please don't wait until the last minute. If you're not going to get it done in 90 days, just shoot me an email. I'll add a few weeks onto there. It's totally fine. Documents. We ask for a lot the first year. Now know that annual recertification is not nearly as arduous. You do not need to send us usually more than like 10% of these documents. But we are going to ask for kind of 4 different categories. First are your legal and governance. So if you're a corporation, your stock certificates and your bylaws, your operating agreement. If you're an LLC, we're going to ask for your articles of incorporation. Under owner eligibility, we're going to ask for your proof of citizenship. So driver's license, passport, birth certificate, something like that. The resumes of all your owners and directors. We want to know who's doing what and who has the background and expertise. Proof of contribution of capital, financial structure. Now, if you're looking at this, don't worry. The next slide, I will tell you, what do I do if I don't have these? Financial structure, we need 3 full years of tax returns, balance sheet, profit loss statement, bank signature cards. There's a bunch of stuff that we will ask for. And then personnel, we're going to ask for your W-2s, list of employees, payroll documentation. So again, this is all just the first year. Your recertification years, you do not have to send us like your whole payroll and 3 years of tax returns and all the stuff all over again. You basically are going to send us your updated financials from the previous year and like 1 or 2 additional documents, and anything else is if it changes. So if you're a brand new business or you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have like any of these documents, here are some things, my recommendations for you. First and foremost, all the governance stuff still applies, the eligibility documents. You still need to send your resume. Don't just send me like a 3-sentence blurb about your co-owner. I need that full resume. The proof of citizenship, your articles of incorporation, you need to be incorporated as a business, stock certificates and bylaws if you're a corporation, and operating agreement if you're an LLC. If you are a sole proprietor or single member LLC, that is fine. You do not need to have an operating agreement as long as your tax returns show that you are the sole owner. Contribution of capital is a question I get a lot. A copy of a deposited check, a statement, an opening statement, anything, even if it's $5 saying that you put some money into your business, that is contribution of capital. 3 full years of tax returns. If you do not have a company tax return for one of those years, you can send in the first 2 pages of your personal tax return and any Schedule C, which is the profit loss of business. You can redact any sensitive info about you and your family, your social security number, but we need to have 3 years. So if you got started in 2020, you have 2020 corporate tax returns, you can send personal for 19 and 2018. And it's the first 2 pages and any Schedule Cs. For company tax returns, we need the full return, not just like the first 2 pages or the Schedule K1. We need to have all of those schedules. Balance sheet and profit loss statement. If you're brand new and you really don't have a lot of profits or losses, like I've seen ones that are just covered in zeros and are about yay long, that is fine. Other things that may not apply to you, if you don't have employees, you may not have payroll or W-2s. If you work out of your home, you may not have a lease agreement, loan agreements, if you don't have any loans. I always recommend just upload a Word document with a simple sentence that says, I don't have this document, I don't have any loan agreements. That way, me or whoever your reviewing officer is, we won't have to ask about it. Because if you just check off NA on there, we're going to think, does she work in Pro? I might ask about that. So just upload that Word document. It's just another thing that will help us go a little bit faster. So I'm getting towards the end of my half hour. So I want to give you a couple of quick tips for you to have a smooth certification process with us. Firstly, you want to create your profile under the female owner's address. If you are an admin here, you don't want to create you don't want to put your name as the female owner. You want to put her name. And also remember that any information, the public information you sent to us, ultimately becomes your company's directory listing. So spell your name correctly, spell your business name correctly, put a good business description with your keywords on there, put your website. It's amazing how many people actually spell their business name incorrectly or type their email incorrectly and then like get upset about it. But I don't retype any of that stuff. It is exactly as you typed it. Submit as many documents as you can in your initial application. If you think, oh, you know what, I don't know, I might have that, but I'll see if they just don't ask for it. We're going to ask for it. Just submit it all together. This is a big one, number 4. Make sure your bylaws or operating agreements support your control as a woman. So 2 things I want you to take a look at. 1, go into the officers section and take a look who is the highest title. A lot of times a generic operating agreement or bylaws will say under the officers section, the president is the head of the company or the president is the CEO of the company. If you're not the president, you are not legally in charge of your company. If you're the CEO and you have a male president, he is legally in charge of you by this document. So please draw up an amendment and sign it saying that you are the head of the company and that the CEO is in charge of the president. Also, you want to look, second thing, for unanimous consent clauses. Take a look and see if there are any clauses in there that says our company can only do this with unanimous consent of all owners. Because if you have a minority male owner and he says, no, I don't want to do this, he can overrule you. And that means that he has now jeopardized your control. And that is not eligible. It's a deniable clause. So please take a look for any unanimous consent clauses in your documents. Number 5, I feel like it's obvious. Please read over everything for accuracy. You would be surprised by how many people are like, oh, that's not correct. Why would my admin type that? Pay the processing fee by credit card rather than check. Another kind of obvious one, snail mail, which is slow. Whitelist this email address, WeBank link at webanklink.org. That is where all notices from the system, any questions from your officer, and ultimately, hopefully that congratulations email, all of that will come from this address. When you get that Q&A, please respond in a timely manner and send all of the answers together. So ultimately, you know, what we want to see from you is when we send like 5 questions, don't get dismayed. You know, that is us doing our due diligence. Everyone gets like at least 5 questions. So take some time, take a week or 2, put your answers together, get additional documents and send it to us. If you need more time, let us know. The system defaults to like giving you 2 weeks. We can give you more time. But please send it together. If you send us part of it, 1 or 2 answers, we're like, okay, we have this, no, we're missing this. It just takes longer. Be flexible when it comes to your site visit so we can schedule you ASAP. And just remember that this whole process, it takes time. So if you think you need the certificate ASAP, apply early so we can get to you because we don't expedite. So I hope this has been helpful and answered all of your questions. Feel free to shoot any questions in the chat or towards the end of the presentation. But I am actually now going to hand it over to Jen to talk about the WOSB and federal contracting programs.
Hi, Colleen, thank you so much. I have never before in my life had somebody that explained the documentation so well, and please come everywhere else because that was extraordinary. Not only did you talk about the type of paperwork I need, but you actually told people that it is not a guarantee to contracts, and a lot of people have that idea in their head. So I love hearing people say that this is not some sort of blank check for contracts. I think a lot of people have this false idea that I have some literal drawer in my desk that's filled with contracts I am not giving to them personally. So there are great marketing opportunities with the certifications that come from the federal government. And please don't get me wrong, but these are not just something where you walk in and go, here, I'm a blank, give me contracts. That's not how it works. This is just one more way to present yourself and to get into the door with the federal government. You still have to have a good product or service at a good price. This is just another way for a contracting officer to get a contract to you. So I am going to hopefully share my screen. And there we go. Is this correct? Okay, excellent. So for those of you who haven't actually been to a class with me yet, my name is Jennifer Tilden. I am basically the head of government contracting at this point for the Small Business Administration for most of the Mid-Atlantic. I currently run the 40 eastern counties of Pennsylvania, the state of New Jersey, and the state of Delaware. So I'm actually in charge of all of the certifications that the federal government does. And if anyone is interested in any of the other certifications that might be available, I'm not actually actively involved in things like Philadelphia or the Commonwealth. But if you want any sort of leads or anything, I can usually get you names at least for those as well. I wanted to start off by saying this is a really common question, and this should be really obvious, but it isn't. We say small business certifications, and we get phone calls a lot from people that have either they want to work with a business or they want to work with someone, and they say, I need my small business certificate. And if you are a certified woman-owned small business, or you are a small business, if you have a small business certification, that sounds like, of course, there should be a certificate somewhere. Unfortunately, in the vast majority of cases, in the federal market, even if you have one of these titles, there won't be a piece of paper that you're going to get. If you work with someone like Colleen's group or one of the third-party certifiers, they might give you a pretty piece of paper that you can frame. If you are in what is called the 8A program, which I will talk to you about in a moment, you'll have a piece of paper to frame. But if you are something like a small business in general, if you are a Hubzone business, if you are a small disadvantaged business, there's no actual piece of paper. If a company or a person or an agency asks, where is your certification? How can you prove you're a small business? What you want to do is you want to point them to your SAM profile. If the company, agency, whoever it is, still has a problem and says that's not sufficient, you want to point them to me. You are not paid to be the bad guy. I am paid to be the bad guy. I am not on your payroll. I am on the government's payroll. I can afford to very politely put them straight and inform them that that is, in fact, the certificate. What are our certifications? Our flagship program that a lot of people have heard of and that a lot of people want into is called the 8A Business Development Program. The 8A program is a 9-year business development program for sociologically and economically disadvantaged individuals. What that basically means is this is a program intended to level the playing field. This is a program that was started recognizing that certain groups of people have traditionally not had fair opportunity and the same access to educational opportunities, the same access to capital and to contract opportunities, to the ability to grow their business and the ability to say, get the same help and the same access to these contracts that we're talking about right now, and the same access to courses and the SBDC and government help that you're seeing right now in this course. And so in an attempt to sort of bring firms exactly like that up to a place where, unfortunately, a lot of, say, white middle class firms started, we started the 8A program. And what the 8A program does is it takes firms, generally in 5 groups, Black American, Native American, Hispanic American, Pacific Asian American, and Subcontinent Asian American. If you are in one of these 5 groups, you are presumed to be sociologically discriminated against. In addition, you have to be economically disadvantaged. For the purposes of our program, that's going to mean that your assets are under $750,000, that your average income over 3 years is less than $350,000, and that the fair market value of all your assets is less than $6 million. I don't know about you guys, but most of the people I know, myself included, are economically disadvantaged by the requirements of the United States government. Of course, the United States government spends billions and billions and billions of dollars per year. So our idea of pocket change is slightly different than most people. But if you're in one of those 5 groups, and if you meet the economic requirements on this slide, then you may qualify for the 8A program. If you meet the economic requirements on this slide, but you are not a member of one of the 5 groups that I read off, once again, Black American, Native American, Hispanic American, Subcontinent Asian American, or Pacific Asian American. If you're not one of those 5 categories, but you believe that you have been discriminated against for a reason that you had no control over, but it affected your ability to forward your business. I'm going to take an example. There are a number of firms that are currently in my portfolio that are, for example, women in a traditionally male-dominated field. Then you can come in on something called the preponderance of evidence standard, which basically means you have to write an essay saying, I am not one of the typical classes, but I have been discriminated against because of blank, and it has affected my ability to forward my business in such a way because of blank, blank, and blank. If anyone believes that they fall into a category outside of one of the 5 and they're interested in talking to me, please get in touch with me offline at any time. The main thing about 8A, you can only be in the 8A program once. That is as a person, and that is as a business. So I want to make sure that every single business that comes through the 8A program is there at the right time for you. You can't be in the 8A program as a startup. So I don't want to see brand new businesses. You have to be in business for at least 2 years. I want to make sure that you have some sort of experience in federal contracting. I want to see cash flow. I want to see past performance in federal contracting. And we're even going to look into things like whether or not you have good character. And that's going to be shown in things like whether or not you have prior convictions for things like white collar crime. But there are tons. The 8A program is going to be a lot of paperwork. And when Colleen talked about a lot of paperwork to get involved with the WBE program, this is even more paperwork. This is applying to college paperwork. The benefit being generally why people want into the 8A program. First of all, we teach you how to do federal contracting. And by we, I mean actual SBA staff will be involved in teaching your company how to do federal contracting. In addition, you will be eligible to market directly to federal agencies for something called non-competitive contracts, or quote unquote sole source contracts. These are contracts which no one else hears about. They come directly from an agency, say the United States Army, to you, your company, no other companies even hear about them. They are an amazing opportunity to grow your business if you know how to use them correctly. For anyone that wants more information about the 8A program, please reach out to me offline, but that is our big flagship program. If you like the way 8A sounded and you think that you've met the requirements of 8A, but you don't want to do the 8,000 piles of paperwork to become an 8A. So basically, if you are Black American, Native American, Hispanic American, Subcontinent Asian American, or Pacific Asian American, congratulations. You are a small disadvantaged business at the federal level. When you go in to register your business in the System for Award Management, SAM, you can automatically check off small disadvantaged business. That is what is required. It is very similar if you're doing business at the Commonwealth level to something along the lines of a minority business enterprise. There is not additional paperwork requirements. That is very similar to an MBE. WOSB, similar to the WBE that we were talking about for the first part, the federal government has a WOSB certification. However, ours is a little strange, and I want to explain the strangeness quickly because the strangeness in the federal government can save a lot of you a lot of time. We as women have a different set aside in the federal government because we have a different situation in the federal government. Most federal government set-asides being when we put a certain contract opportunity and we cut it out so that only a certain portion of companies can bid for that particular contract. Say, only veterans can make a bid on this opportunity, or only women could put in a bid for this opportunity. That's called a set-aside. Normally, set-asides are done because the group we're setting it aside for is a minority in some way. Say, Black Americans or Native Americans. Women are not a minority. There are actually more of us than there are of them being men. It is not a question of us being a minority in business. It is a question of us not having fair opportunity, which is a different problem. Because there are fields in which we actually excel over men. We don't need help in all fields. I'm sorry, I don't have it on this one. I apologize. I thought I had a different slide on there. There are fields like, say, and I realize this is horrendously stereotypical, but that's the whole point. There are fields like interior design and nanny and things like that that women have traditionally excelled at. So when we went to create a woman-owned small business set-aside, the government looked at it and said, well, women don't need help in woman business. They're doing perfectly well in woman business. So someone in the government, thankfully above my pay grade, had to sit down with a list of every single North American Industrial Classification System code and figure out which were girl jobs and which were boy jobs. And at the federal level, if you do what was traditionally a boy job, then you need to bother to become a WOSB. If you do what was traditionally a girl job, or if you do what was traditionally a non-gendered job, it may not benefit you in any way to become certified as a WOSB because they only ever set aside contracts for woman-owned small business in lines of business where women had a hard time. So, like it says here, not all NAICS codes are eligible because they only pulled out the places where we needed a leg up. There is a new process. Recently, we just changed everything over. We moved over to beta.certified.gov, or I'm sorry, it's now certify.sba.gov. As Colleen went through, we have pretty much all the same requirements for what constitutes a WOSB. Highest officer position, normal working hours, she has to make long-term decisions for the business. You don't have to be in business for 2 years, like I said with the 8A. We do require that they have to be a woman or women who are US citizens. I'm not sure that was a requirement with WeBank, but the big point I have is the key question for whether or not you want to bother, and that first question in the WeBank thing is, you want to look at what you do and say, is this something that was not traditionally done by women? And if you don't do something that you think, hey, yeah, this is not something the women usually did, then there might be no benefit to you registering it as a WOSB at the federal level. It is not that you are not a woman-owned small business. It is just that going through the paperwork is not worthwhile for you because there will never be a set aside for you because the federal government doesn't think you need the leg up because they think that you're every bit as qualified as guys and you don't need the leg up, if that makes sense. So if you have a question, I'm happy to get everyone the list. I'll also put the list up on my LinkedIn with these slides after the class. Move again. Hubzone program. This one is Sasquatch and Elvis riding the Loch Ness Monster because no one understands it, no one sees it, no one knows it. It's this incredible mythical beast. Hubzone is the greatest program that no one is using. Hubzone is the historically underutilized business program that was started back in 1996 by Senator Kit Bond. What it basically means is if you live either in a major intercity or if you live way out in the boonies where there are either a lot of wolves or a lot of cows, then there is a special contracting program to bring contracts to where you live. Because in general, there is not a lot of federal contracting money that goes into either like Center City, Camden, Center City, Philly, or like way out in Potter County out by Coudersport where like no one goes except like the groundhog, or way out toward Harrisburg out that way where it's like cows and Amish people and stuff out that way. No contracts go out there because there's nothing about cows and Amish people, and Amish people don't win a huge number of federal contracts because they're Amish. And down Philly, a lot of contracts don't go down Philly because it's down Philly. So they decided the best way to do with this is if you can get contracts down Philly, there's a ripple effect, because if you can bring money into the inner city, then there's more money in the inner city. People spend money in the inner city and it ripples out to the community. What do you require to be a Hubzone business? You have to be, your principal place of business has to be located within a Hubzone. There's a map. It's really easy to use. And 35% of your employees have to be in a Hubzone. There are Hubzone set-asides. No agency ever hits their Hubzone requirement. So when I said that you can't just go into an agency and go, hi, I'm me, hand me contracts. Being a Hubzone firm however, is an excellent way to distinguish yourself if you are correctly in a hub zone. There's also a possibility that you may have a special price preference in certain contracts. For example, it turns out that Temple University is smack in the middle of a hub zone. So places like Kensington, down Philly, are hub zone. If anyone is curious if they might be located in a hub zone, a lot of Philly, a lot of Camden is located. Just reach out to me after the class. I'm happy to look. They generally move approximately every 10 years with the census. So we just had a bunch of them move around recently. Final category that we have at the federal level, we do thank our ladies and gentlemen in uniform with a service disabled veteran-owned small business and a veteran-owned small business set-asides. These are self-certified on SAM. The service disabled veteran-owned small business, there is a 3% set aside across the entire federal government that is set aside for service disabled vets. If you have a service disability at any percentage, that is obviously determined by the VA, as you know, you are qualified for a 3% set aside across the board with the federal government. If you are a veteran, not service disabled, there is a veteran-owned small business set aside within the VA. And there is a special program for VA and veteran-owned business through VetBiz. We can help you get registered there as well. And please reach out to us. We'll be happy to get you involved with one of our veteran business centers. Finally, I'd like to let you know, and I'm sure Temple would like to let you know, and WeBank as well, as you become involved in federal contracting and woman-owned business contracting in any of these areas, there are a lot of people that do not have your best interests in mind. As you find yourself registering in SAM, getting a DUNS number, becoming involved in a lot of these websites, putting out your first forays into getting some of these contracts, there will be a lot of companies and potential mentors and potential partners that are going to reach out to a new, small, and in many cases, potential minority business partner. And a lot of them may not have your best interests at heart. There are serial businesses who take advantage of small businesses wanting to use their set-aside status. There are larger businesses who want to charge you for services that we, the SBDCs, the government, and other entities will offer you for free. And there are just a lot of people that you just don't feel that something's quite right. Or at times, there are honestly outright threats that will come to your mailbox. If you don't pay $500, we'll shut you down. If you don't do this, you have to pay, you must pay. If something feels bad, if something smells bad, if something feels like a threat, if you get any of this and it feels bad, please, timeout defense, call me, call Colleen, call Temple, call somebody, because none of this should cost, none of this should feel bad, none of this should feel sketchy. If there's a problem, it's a problem. So I'm the US government. Please let me know. I would like to take care of this. If I don't know about it, I can't stop it. Please reach out in some way, and I'm always happy to take a look at it. And it's not a bother. This is literally my job. Reach out at any time. And if there's anything I said, anytime that you have a question, it is literally my job. You're never bothering me. Always come back to me anytime. Reach out to me in 3 years because you think, oh, that crazy girl with the green hair, she said I could reach out. This is my contact information and my contact information for my second in command here in Pennsylvania. His name is George. We're still teleworking, but I'm available. I'm currently available. I'm not sure if I'll be available next week because we still don't have a budget, but all my info and all this information will be up on my LinkedIn.
All right, thank you, Jen. As a final note here, there are some links in the chat. The first one is a link to the survey, which is required by our funders at the SBA, so that we can continue to offer these workshops. And as a final reminder, everyone will be getting a link to these PowerPoints and a recording, so you can refer back. All of the contact information is on there as well. And we are looking pretty good in the chat, so I think we're all set to wrap up here. All right. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Colleen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.